Hello, and welcome to this lectionary reflection for the second Sunday in Lent. We will begin with this Lenten collect. Artists of souls, you sculpted a people for yourself out of the rocks of wilderness and fasting. Help us as we take up your invitation to prayer and simplicity, that the discipline of these 40 days may shapen our hunger for the feast of your holy friendship, and whet our thirst for the living water you offer through Jesus Christ. Amen. Now a reading from the Holy Gospel of St. Mark. Then he began to teach them that the Son of Man must undergo great suffering and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the scribes, and be killed, and after 3 days rise again. He said all this openly. And Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. But turning and looking at his disciples, Jesus rebuked Peter and said, "Get behind me, Satan, for you are setting your mind not on divine things, but on human things." He called a crowd with his disciples and said to them, "If you want to become my followers, let them deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For those who want to save their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake and for the sake of the gospel will save it. For what will it profit them to gain the whole world and forfeit their life? Indeed, what can they give in return for their life? Those who are ashamed of me and my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, of them the Son of Man also will be ashamed when he comes in the glory of his Father with his holy angels." This art before you is the art that we looked at last week for the first Sunday in Lent. And I'll draw your attention to this image right here, because it summarizes what we read last week, and it summarizes Lent. Jesus here is tempted by Satan when he goes into the wilderness for the 40 days. And we often find ourselves in Lent looking at the very face of evil, whether in the world around us or even in ourselves. And yet Lent doesn't stop there. And as we saw in the end of the story last week, Jesus was comforted by the angels. And what we find is that God often comes and comforts us in Lent. And even the way that Lent ends, with Easter and resurrection, there is always life and light at the end of the darkness. In the passage today, Jesus tells these revolutionary words, "Take up your cross and follow me." They might be words that we find to be familiar, yet they're still quite radical. Die to follow me. And the words that we heard Christ tell Peter, "Get behind me, Satan," we often find the same things true about ourselves. That the way we are motivated in life is not by the things of God, but by human things. And that becomes the comfort in the words that Christ gives us, to take up your cross and follow me. I find myself this week gazing at the stations of the cross. There's 12 stations of the cross. But there's 2 of them where Jesus drops the cross. And he's on the ground and he's having to pick it up like he's carrying it. I have one of those here on the screen before you. And it shows the weight and the burden that it means to carry your cross, to take up your cross. And that's the life that Christ invites us into. It's hard work. It is dying. And yet God comes and comforts us in the midst of that. Take up your cross. What might your cross be this week? Now we will close with the Our Father. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us, and lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.